Major SA2 might be surprising for you. Usually, when we're talking about academic argument, we're talking about the big debates in the society. And those are incredibly important. But with this particular assignment, we're scaling down our discussion about what makes an effective argument into like a more human sized scale. So, an everyday kind of scale. And that's partly so we can talk about these ideas of rhetorical context in a way which really applies to your life and that you can use in your paper without doing a bunch of research, because that's not part of what we do in English 101. So, this brief lecture, I want to talk about how we are going to be assessing the values and needs of our audience, which is a very important part of the rhetorical context. I want to start with a quick reminder about winning an argument and what that looks like in this context. Your purpose in Major SA2 is to plan a successful argument, which means moving your audience one step closer to agreeing with you. Academic argument isn't a battle, and you aren't looking for full surrender. It's a respectful presentation of your ideas with the goal of finding common ground for moving forward. Here are some questions you can ask yourself about your audience. I recommend doing this as a quick brainstorm. Ask yourself these questions to help you identify your audience and what you can do to address their values and needs. Because if you know your audience, you know what's going to move them closer to your point of view. Take some time to really define who your audience is. Keep it small, keep it a small group, keep it an individual that you know what they're all about, and you don't have to do research. Humanize it. What does your audience need? What do they want? What do they value? What is most important to them? These are things that we don't take into consideration a lot of times when we're doing these big, polarized, divisive debates. We just want to talk about how we're right, and we don't pay enough attention about what our audience wants, and so we don't move them. Also, ask yourself what they're least likely to care about, because that's not going to help you to argue. What kind of presentation of your ideas will best help your audience understand and appreciate your argument? What do you have to say that might surprise your audience? It can be super effective if you can come up with something there. Like how surprising would it be if you can put forward some common ground that would surprise your audience that you're trying to convince? What do you want your audience to think, learn, or assume about you? What impression do you want your argument to convey? So take a second. I'd take 5 minutes at least. The time you spend jotting down some notes on this, I think will really help you shape how you present Major SA2. One of the main things that I'm urging you to be very careful of in this paper is not insulting your audience. So, this is something that happens a lot in large scale debates, in political debates, when we have the tendency to try to tear down our opponent in order to make ourselves look better. And you really want to avoid that in this context because we want them to come along with us in some way. Right? Civility and using a respectful tone are key to moving your audience closer to your point of view. If you insult your audience, they will quickly step further away from your position. In our reading, we have some quick flashcards explaining some of the most common logical fallacies. And I'd say this is one that I see most commonly when I listen to people debating on TV. And it's ad hominem attacks, which means attacking the person, attacking their character and their personal traits in an attempt to undermine their argument. So ad hominem attacks can take the form of overtly attacking somebody or more subtly casting doubts on their character or personal attributes as a way to discredit their point of view. So the result of an ad hominem attack can be to undermine someone's case without actually having to engage it, which is why people do that. So watch for this in your tone, in the way that you describe your audience. Be respectful and be civil. I leave you with the words of Mary Wortley Montague. She's an 18th century British aristocrat, but this phrase is so important that it's often called the Montague Principle, and it's this: civility costs nothing and buys everything. So I'll leave you with that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with in your major essay too.